Hello, Rama Rama Puppodu. Hope all are in good health, having a nice time, being happy always, feeling very relaxed, and having a peaceful life. Now let's continue with chapter 31. Junaghad. Now the train carried Ramdas to the station of Junaghad. It was midday. Ramdas was without a guide. At the city gate, he inquired of a policeman if there was a Ram Mandir in that place. He replied that there was a Ram Mandir about 2 miles from the gate, and he pointed out the way leading to it. Ramdas walked on, making frequent inquiries on the way. At last, he reached the high gateway of the Ram Mandir. Entering, Ramdas was welcomed by the Mahani of the ashram, with whom Ramdas remained for about a week. Here Ramdas had the benefit of the society of 6 other sadhus who were also there as the guests of the kind-hearted Mahani. All of them were very kind to Ramdas. Ram here performed 2 wonderful miracles. One of these sadhus had an attack of fever since a fortnight, and in spite of various kinds of treatment, he was as bad as ever. He was bedridden, emaciated, and pale. Besides, he was disheartened and was fretting over his illness. Seeing his condition, Ramdas could not resist going to his bed and sitting near him and offering himself for his service. Began pressing his legs lightly. Coming to know of this, the ailing sadhu sat up and remonstrated to say that he was quite unworthy to receive such attention from Ramdas. He asked only for a blessing from Ramdas to the effect that he should be all right by the following day. Ramdas said that he was only a humble slave of Ram and had no right to bless anybody. Do bless in the name of Ram, he appealed. Well, brother, said Ramdas, may Sri Ram, the protector of all, bless you with health by tomorrow morning. That night, Ram was perhaps busy setting the sadhu right. For the next morning, he was entirely free from fever and was moving about in good cheer and health. This marvelous cure by Ram, for working on which he had made humble Ramdas his tool, caused quite a sensation in the ashram. So Ramdas became the object of much attention and love from all in the ashram. About 3 or 4 days later, another sadhu fell ill. He too asked Ramdas to bless him in the same way as he had done to the other one. Ramdas prayed again to Ram as requested. O Ram, what a powerful being thou art! The second sadhu also recovered by the following morning. All glory to thee, Ram. Ramdas was not made to remain in this ashram long. He met one day the same sannyasi who had guided him to Dharmapuri. He had evinced a great liking for Ramdas. Now he took him up and brought him to another ashram belonging to a well-known sannyasi of Junaghad, Kashigiri by name. In this ashram, or Akada as it was called, Ramdas was loved by all sannyasis. There were about 15 of them. Ram's intention in taking him to Junaghad was to enable him to scale the heights of the famous hill of Girnar, the seat of Guru Dattatreya and Mother Ambaji. He expressed this wish to Kashigirji, who proposed also to accompany him on his climb. Ram's kindness is indeed very great. A day was fixed, and one night he mounted the steps of Girnar with Kashigirji and 6 other sannyasis, who were also in the party. The total number of steps he mounted in order to reach the summit of the hills was about 9,000. 6,000 steps were covered and they reached at about 3 after midnight the ashram of a sannyasi whose name was Shankargirji. Here, a halt was made for the night. Cold on the hills was severe. Ram was kind and his bhajan was so sweet. Next morning, the party climbed further up and reached the first temple of Mother Ambaji, and thence, ascending a flight of steps, mounted again the highest peak among those hills. While nearing this peak, the steps were irregular and slippery, but Ram led all up safely. Here, on the summit, are the footprints of Guru Dattatreya. Hundreds of pilgrims are every day ascending these hills for the darshan of these holy footprints. To sit on the edge of this peak and to have a sweeping look all around is to present to the gaze a most enthralling sight. The charming landscapes on all sides, the distant hills painted with green and yellow, the vast blue expanse of the sky overhead, and the thin silvery streaks of sparkling water streaming down the smooth and shining sides of rocks are all scenes that elevate the looker on to regions at once mystic and celestial. On getting down of this hill, halfway, the party visited some caves occupied by Mahatmas and had the uncommon pleasure of their society. Then were visited with various reservoirs of water on the slopes of the hills. At length they returned at noon to the hospitable ashram of Shankargirji. After dinner, the party started on the downward journey and reached Junaghad in the evening. Next day, all the sannyasis of the party were complaining of stiffness and pain in their limbs. Some of them, for 2 or 3 days, could only hobble along. But Ram was so kind to Ramdas that he did not feel any pain or stiffness in his legs. Now, Ram made him acquainted with 2 young friends, Maganlal and Kantilal, both of whom conceived a great love for him. In their company he spent a few very happy days. They would take him every evening for walks in the public gardens and among groves of trees. Once in their company, Ramdas ascended a small hill called Lakshman Tekri. They also introduced him to some Muslim friends of the place who were all very kind to him. A visit was paid to the Datta Mosque at the foot of the Datta Hills. Maganlal made him acquainted with the several friends of Junaghad who were all uniformly kind to Ramdas. Maganlal arranged for his journey to Somanath, a noted shrine of great historical importance. Ramdas duly proceeded to this shrine in the company of a Gujarati friend who met him at the railway station by the grace of Ram. This friend, on reaching Veraval station, as arranged by Maganlal, took Ramdas to the house of a rich merchant of the place, a relation of Maganlal. But when Ramdas visited him, he was laid up with high fever, and the whole of this household was in a state of acute anxiety over his illness. Ramdas sat near the sick friend and, touching him on the arm, felt the high temperature of the body. Before leaving the room, Ramdas was asked by his relatives present as well as by the friend who escorted Ramdas to the place to bless the patient with health. Accordingly, Ramdas said that by the grace of Almighty Ram, he would be all right next morning. Ram manifested his power here as well. The patient was entirely free from all fever next morning. He was having the attack of fever for 5 days past without intermission. By Ram's grace, now the fever having left him, he was able to walk out to his place of business. Ramdas was staying in the topmost story of his shop, a huge building. Here too, all were kind to Ramdas. Ramdas duly visited the ruins and the temple of Somnath. The underground cave in which there is the huge image of Somnath was entered into, and he stood before the idol. Ramdas here again felt thrills of ecstasy in the presence of Somnath. He bathed in the river a little away from the temple. Returning to Veraval, Ramdas expressed to the merchant friend, as prompted by Ram, his wish to visit Prachi and Mudi, Goraknath, and said that he would go on foot early next morning. "No, Swamiji," said the kind merchant, "you should not go on foot. I shall engage a bullock cart for you, for the road leading to these places is so rugged and rough that even a horse carriage cannot be driven over there. Moreover, you have to cover a distance of 16 miles, which is a long distance for a weak man like you to walk through." Although Ramdas was against the proposal, he was prevailed upon by the friend to sit in a cart along with some other friends who were also bound for Prachi. The kind friend dropped into the pocket of Ramdas small kerchief, to which were tied ₹2 for cart hire to and from Prachi. The cart started before daybreak. They had not travelled half a mile when Ramdas saw the driver beating the bullocks with a heavy stick. Ramdas, of course, could not bear the sight. He felt as if the blows were delivered on his own back. He appealed to the driver not to inflict injury on the bullock. He replied the bullock would not go if he was not chastised. Ram now commanded Ramdas to give up the cart at once. After paying ₹1 his hire, Ramdas got down and walked through the distance and reached Prachi at about midday. As he was proceeding, he happened to pass close to a poorly dressed man with a bundle on his back. Seeing Ramdas, he quickly moved out of the way and began walking at the other end of the road. Proceeding a little further, he met another man coming from the opposite direction, and both greeted each other with "Ram, Ram." When going a little further, Ramdas questioned him as to why he was moving so far away from him, to which he replied that he was a pariah. "Oh, but you are Ramdas, brother, all the same." So saying, Ramdas approached him and took him by his hand. He stared at Ramdas in confusion. "I am a dead by caste," he again said. "Ramdas is your brother," repeated Ramdas. "A man who has the name of Ram on his lips is superior to a Brahman. In the eyes of Ram, all are equal." Until he parted, Ramdas went on talking to him about the glory of Ram. Now he took a side track and separated from Ramdas, who soon after fell into the company of a Mohammedan friend, driving a horse loaded with some merchandise. This friend, whose nature was simple and childlike, gave Ramdas much pleasure by his society until Ramdas reached Prachi. Bathing in the large tank into which a river was flowing, he visited several mandis, met two sadhus of the place, and then started on his return journey, and reached in the evening the shrine called Mudi Goraknath. Here Ramdas remained for a night in the society of the sadhus of the temple, which is also a cave entrance to which can be gained only by descending a number of stone steps. Starting from there early next morning, he reached Veraval in the forenoon. The first thing he did was to return the balance of ₹1 to the merchant. He had walked all the way with enthusiasm, repeating, according to his wont, the sacred Ram mantra. The following day, Ramdas went back by train to Junaghad. Maganlal and Kantilal heartily welcomed Ramdas back. They pressed Ramdas to remain in Junaghad for some more days. Ramdas agreed to do so by Ram's will, provided he was allowed to remain in solitude where he could spend his days in entire devotion to the to and meditation of Ram. Accordingly, Ram himself pitched upon a place named Muchkund, Rishi's ashram. This is situated in the very midst of a dense jungle over a hill on the way to Girnar, about 4 miles from Junaghad. There is a temple here in ruins, and there are a number of samadhis in a neglected condition. The place has consequently a weird appearance. That's all, folk. Let's see in the next chapter. Thank you. Bye bye. Rama Rama Pupodu.